In the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." In this, the annual Sermon on the Mount, one message would be, no one is too poor in spirit to give. As it happens, parts of the Sermon on the Mount, including the Beatitudes, are also included in the Gospel of Luke. But there, his words are given a little differently, namely by omitting "in spirit." So Luke's account says, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled." And again, in this Sermon on the Mount, that is the amount to give to First Parish in your pledge, I would say no one is too poor to give. In the Acts of the Apostles, Jesus is quoted directly as having said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Today, the question before us is, how much do you need to give to be blessed? Wait, that begins to smack of the sale of indulgences by the Roman Catholic Church some 500 years ago, in which you could pay in order to remit your time or someone else's in purgatory. And that did end rather badly for the Catholic Church as more and more people rejected the sale of indulgences, among many other practices, and became Lutherans or Calvinists or Baptists or Unitarians, or joined another one of the hundreds of Protestant sects and denominations that have sprung up since that time. Giving has ancient roots. When the nation of Israel was beginning its journey to the Promised Land, Moses decreed that every family should give 10%, a tithe, of everything they earned to support the priests and the temple. And that's been taken as a standard in many congregations ever since. When Muhammad founded the religion of Islam, he set a different standard. A good Muslim, he commanded, was to give 2.5% of their wealth each year. 2.5% of their wealth, not just their income, but their wealth. What he termed zakat. In fact, it was so important in building a community of Muslims that it became one of the 5 pillars of the Islamic faith. My parents and grandparents faithfully gave a tithe of what they earned from our farm to support their church. And I've always seen that as a standard to which I should aspire, though there have, of course, been times in my life when I've fallen short in the total I give to all causes. Our Unitarian Universalist Association suggests a standard of 5% as a worthy goal. The standard of 1/10 of income in Jewish tradition was applied to every family in the community. No matter how poor someone might be, they were still expected to give 10%. No one was excused because they had too little, because being part of the community is actually more important than holding on to some of the money that you have. And even someone who is receiving charity is to give, because otherwise the recipient is on the outside rather than being part of the community as a whole. In fact, if we think about it, that's precisely what constitutes a community or a congregation. Each one gives their time, treasure, and talent according to what they've received, and thus all are a part of creating the community. And that's the way it is in our congregation. But come on, let's be honest. Most of you have already made up your minds about how much you'll pledge to the support of this beloved community already. And one sermon on the amount is not going to change your minds. So I could just stop right here, having done what little I can to help you feel good about what you're already planning to give to the support of First Parish. But if I believed that I could influence your decision about how much to pledge, I could mention the ways in which this congregation carries out the promises that we make in our covenant to help one another. When times are good and when times are bad for each of us, this congregation pays attention. We celebrate our joys together and we bear our sorrows together. Some among us have particular needs from time to time, financial, emotional, physical, and this congregation stretches to meet those needs. The minister's discretionary fund, which you fund by your offering on Christmas Eve, is of real help to our members and some folks from outside in helping them to get through tough times. Part of what you pay me to do is to counsel members and friends in this congregation when they need someone to turn to for a listening ear and an open heart. If I thought I could change your mind about how much you plan to give to this support of this beloved community, I could tell you, as if you didn't already know, that this is our bisesquicentennial, our 300th anniversary as a congregation. It's a birthday. I could mention that we've inherited this building, this whole property, and a generous endowment from those who came before us in this place. I could remind you how much we love this place that we have been given. I could mention that these warm places where we meet, this sanctuary, the upper and lower parish halls, the office, all of these have been bequeathed to us. And we're responsible for passing on this legacy, hopefully in better condition than we received it. If I thought I could convince you to increase your pledge a little bit, I could mention the generosity with which many of you have supported the acquisition and outfitting of the Hive, the first new space, as Frank pointed out, that we have acquired as a congregation in many, many decades. I could mention how important having more usable space is for our religious education program, and that it frees up the upper parish hall when we need to use it immediately after the service. I could mention the generosity of some of you in upgrading our sound system and providing the projector and the screen that we've gotten over the last couple of years. I could mention your generosity in helping to pay for and to build the platform on which we tell our story for all ages. If I thought you could be influenced to give a little bit more, I would mention that we are all seekers on the journey of our lives, trying to find ways to lead our lives more fully by engaging our hearts and our minds in intimate settings. I would remind you that our adult education program is one of the important contexts in which we explore what truly matters to each of us while listening to one another, so that we get to know other points of view, other ideas that we might also want to incorporate. I would mention other groups, events we share as a result of bidding at our social auction, dinners, walks, vacation homes, so many others. We have game nights for grown-ups and for families. Our circle dinners, which Jan mentioned, give us an opportunity to enjoy good food together and learn to know one another better. I would mention other groups, formal and informal, our book group, the science and religion group, sailing trips and hikes that are organized here. If I truly believed it would make a difference, I would mention our staff, whose job is to help teach our kids, maintain our facilities, take care of the business of this congregation, provide wonderful music, lead services, and help guide the work of this congregation. If I really thought it would make a difference to you, I would point out that this is a place where we do social justice together. This is a congregation that reaches out to help where help is needed, to advocate when changes are needed, to remind ourselves and our community every fall that peace is possible. We've lately become more and more aware of the degree to which mass incarceration ruins lives and families and children's lives. And we've started the Read to Me, Father program at Old Colony Correctional Center as a way to help inmates maintain contacts with their families and their children. We've created a relationship with Messiah Baptist in Brockton, in part as a way for us to recognize our own and our children's relative privilege. And we're about to start considering whether we should become a Black Lives Matter congregation like many of our other Unitarian Universalist congregations. We're blessed to have Reverend Rachel affiliated with us as our community minister, whose advocacy is joined by many others in the congregation. If I truly believed it would make a difference, I would mention that we're friends here. I've become increasingly aware of how important community is as I've met people who are without community. Our society has lately become a place where more and more people have no one in their lives to talk to when there are important decisions to be made. That's why this congregation is so important. Just yesterday I was meeting with someone who was going through a difficult divorce, who had no friends at all to share her grief at that moment. I told her that she needed to be part of a congregation, perhaps ours, so that she could have around her friends who would care when hard times came to her. If I thought my words would influence you, well, actually I've already said quite a few of the things I would say if I thought it would make a difference. There are many others. There is this beloved community in which we have fun together, mourn together, celebrate, learn, worship, advocate, and lead our lives together. Let me go back to the title of this sermon. What do we owe as stewards of this congregation? The answer is, we don't owe anything. This is not a store in which goods are purchased. We don't have a menu of activities for which you can buy separate tickets like you can at an amusement park. A beloved community is made up of individuals and families who give and receive without thinking a lot about who owes what to whom. This is not a place to get a good deal. We don't practice the art of the deal here. We don't calculate how to get the most advantage for the least investment. We covenant together in order to create something very special in each of our lives. A place in which, and a people with whom, we can create a common home in which we can share burdens and joys, in which we can grow in wisdom and, with the younger generation, in stature. We covenant to walk together at all times on the journey of our lives. Our religious forebears long ago gave up the threat of hell and the sure promise of heaven and focused our attention here on this life as the place that our hopes and fears and dreams would be realized. We don't try to manipulate your guilt and demand money so that you will be forgiven. We hold no threats over anyone's heads. We don't promise that if you give more, you will receive more. We don't preach a prosperity gospel here. The gospel says that you will be rewarded in kind for giving. We know that giving is its own reward and that our lives go better when we're all generous. It's more blessed to give than receive, as Jesus said, because it expresses our gratitude. It affirms that each of us has an important part to play in our communities. It enables each of us to receive when we are in need and to express our gratitude by ministering to others when they are in need. Khalil Gibran has this to say about giving in The Prophet. Then said a rich man, "Speak to us of giving." And he answered, "You give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. For what are your possessions but things you keep and guard for fear you may need them tomorrow? There are those who give little of the much which they have, and they give it for recognition, and their hidden desire makes their gifts unwholesome. And there are those who have little and give it all. These are the believers in life and the bounty of life, and their coffer is never empty. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. It is well to give when asked, but it's better to give unasked through understanding. And to the open-handed, the search for one who shall receive is joy greater than giving. See first that you yourself deserve to be a giver and an instrument of giving. For in truth, it is life that gives unto life, while you, who deem yourself a giver, are but a witness. And you receivers, and you are all receivers, assume no weight of gratitude, lest you lay a yoke upon yourself and upon the one who gives. Rather, rise together with the giver on his gifts as on wings. May our giving be blessed, and may it bless this, the beloved community that we share. May it be so, and amen.